So as we know, it's all kicking off with E3 this year. EA have kicked things off with their conference, and it wasn't that good. No, no. Sorry, EA. I know you're really trying to kick things off with what you're showing off with all your games and all that, but no, it didn't really make that much of an impact. I'm really sorry, but I don't really talk about full conferences. Normally, I look at the games that interest me, and I talk about the games that I'm interested in E3. But I thought I'd actually go through each one that I'm actually going to watch. So I wanted to watch EA, I'm going to watch Microsoft, I will also watch Ubisoft and Sony. I'm not worried about Bethesda or Square Enix, or in fact Devolver Digital for that matter. Although, if you missed the live stream from EA, you're really not missing that much at all. So I'll go through them as best I can. I'm more of obviously a racing fan, but I'm going in a kind of a blind eye with this one. So they kick things off with Battlefield 5, which, as we all know, is set in World War II. And they really went into detail of what you can actually expect to see. They were showing off more of the multiplayer aspects for the time being. They are still doing the war stories, but we're going to see the first one revealed at Xbox's conference, which is tomorrow. So there's going to be that. It definitely looked the part. I mean, I did actually play Battlefield 1 very briefly. I actually borrowed it from a workmate of mine, and I'll actually respect Battlefield 1 for its authenticity on how it portrayed World War 1. But yeah, this one looked really cool. Frostbite engine, physics were great, as you'd expect from a Frostbite engine game. You can actually customise your players as well. Instead of going in by choosing a generic one, I think that's how I said, I'm not a Battlefield player. I can't remember if there was customization in Battlefield 1, but this one you can customise them exactly how you want, which is pretty cool. There's going to be obviously new war stories to tell during the times of war, and as I said, they're going to show the first one off at Xbox tomorrow. The other big thing, though, is that they announced that there's going to be no loot boxes and no premium passes. That's great, because as we all know, EA are very synonymous with those sorts of aspects of gaming. Battlefield 2, no, not Battlefield 2, Battlefront 2, for instance, which I'll actually get onto in a moment, because they did feature that very briefly. But there's not going to be any of that in Battlefield 5, which is brilliant. I'm actually really glad that they did that as it's such. So that means any content that gets released is yours regardless. There's obviously none of the loot box systems which plagued so many games last year. The only thing that I'm really... because obviously they're copying trends with this one. For instance, with Fortnite and PUBG, they're going to add a Battle Royale mode. They are clearly copying Fortnite and PUBG with this one. So, well, as I said, not really a fan of Battlefield, but as I said, I respect it for its authenticity. The next thing we went on to was FIFA 19. I don't play sports games, so why am I even mentioning this? Well, I will actually mention, if you are a football fan, they have partnered with the UEFA Champions League. So if you're a huge follower of the UEFA Champions League, that's absolutely fine for you. There's actually one thing I will actually point out, is they obviously announced their World Cup DLC for FIFA 18. And obviously we know it's there, but they actually did a little bit of a dig at some of the teams there. So, for instance, you can play as your team that didn't quite qualify, and they showed the England team. I actually thought it was pretty funny. I'm not a football fan, but I thought that was just quite funny. Then the company's CEO, or EA CEO, Andrew Wilson, walks out. Bond villain in the making. Because he still looks like a Bond villain. I am so sorry, Andrew, but you really do, mate, honestly. He was talking about how streaming and the subscription services for a little bit, and he described them as a disruption on the industry. I don't know why you said that, because about 5 minutes later you announced your Origin Access Premium streaming service. What? Why? So hang on. Frankly, you think that is a disruption on the industry. That's bollocks, mate. Let's be honest. A lot of content now is being streamed. For instance, Amazon Prime Video. I've watched the Grand Tour. That's streamed from Amazon Prime. A lot of films, they're being streamed from, say, Amazon Prime, Netflix, wherever. That is how a lot of people watch their content nowadays, Andrew. But how are you calling it a disruption, then contradicting that argument with the release of, or the announcement rather, of your new streaming service? Why? Just why? It's weird. I don't get that. And this is just EA being EA. Don't know what else to say. Then they moved on. We're getting away from the whole premium spiel. Then the host of the conference was this weird girl. She was in the audience with someone from a development company. I can't remember the name of the development company, but they were working on a new Star Wars game called The Jedi Fallen Order, or Jedi Fallen Order. The guy was really vague about it. All we know, it's set between Episode 3 and Episode 4, much like The Force Unleashed was, even though that's not canon. And it's set in the dark times of the Force. That's all we got. We haven't got anything else, with no information, no gameplay, we have no idea if it's coming to consoles, no idea if it's coming to mobile, no idea if it's going to be a PC-only game. More information would be really useful, but all we also know it's coming in the holiday season next year. That's it. I've got nothing else on that one. Sticking with Star Wars, I did mention Battlefront 2 briefly about their loot box system, but they've touched on this one, and yeah, let's say the I'm guessing he's the lead director. He came out and actually really apologised to everybody and realised, yeah, we kind of screwed up. You really screwed up with your loot box system and your premium service. And the rolling back was a last minute decision based on feedback. But they've announced that there is going to be new hero characters based on Solo, the Star Wars story film that's been released. So young Han Solo, young Lando Calrissian is there. So that's pretty cool. They've announced their extraction mode, which is from Battlefront 1. So that's now been carried over to Battlefront 2, which is really cool. Again, I'm not really a Battlefront player. I did play Battlefront 1. I actually thought it was pretty fun because I like Star Wars. Simple. I just like Star Wars. They've announced new hero characters from the prequel universe. For instance, they announced General Grievous, you know, the droid, sort of droid cyborg with a human heart and organic heart and eyes droid with the 4 lightsabers. You can play as him. They've also announced Obi-Wan Kenobi, Count Dooku, and Anakin Skywalker. Is it going to be a whining bitch again? I don't know. But that's what I got from that. But as I said, it's really cool that they're adding those in for Battlefront fans. That's fine, but as I said, I'm not a Battlefront player. I'm not even a Battlefield player. I don't really play these sort of games. But obviously, if you are into that, fine. You've got that. Then they moved on to Unravel 2. And this was... And you remember when they first revealed Unravel? The lead director, Martin Selene, walked out. He was super nervous. His hands were really shaking. And you could tell he was super passionate about his game. And he was passionate about this one as well. But he was much more confident when he walked out on stage. What we know is that Unravel 2 is going to be co-op based. So you can actually now control... Excuse me. You can now control 2... little Yarnies, one red and one blue. You can either play it solo, where the blue one or the red one, whichever one you play as, will wrap around and become part of you. Or when you play in 2-player co-op, you can choose who you control. From what I gathered story-wise, you had this spark from the first one, and you've lost it in this one, but it's been rekindled thanks to finding your co-op character. And it certainly looks really pretty. The graphics are nice and colourful in obviously the more colourful areas. When it gets darker, it goes a little bit more solemn, as it usually does in these sort of games. And yeah, I actually remember Martin actually said in terms of story-wise, it literally hits your heartstrings really quickly when it looks like Yanni was on a ship. He was running away from something, and then the ship capsized. He was in the ocean, and a big wave looms over. It takes Yanni away, and he then obviously that's how he finds the second one. And in terms of the mechanics as well, you can, when you split off into the two Yanni characters, one can swing over to one side and then he can generate the length of yarn, and then the other character can swing across with it. He can create distractions. They were running away from this bird in the I'm guessing it was a really angry turkey because he didn't want Thanksgiving dinner. Obviously running away from this bird, getting away, and they just make it, and it sounded like they were having fun playing it, which was really good. I actually prefer that sort of gameplay reveal, which is really nice. The other thing as well is that it's out right now. It's finished, it's done, it's out for sale. I don't know how much it is right now. You can let me know how much it is, I guess. Yeah, I didn't play the first one. I think I really should, to be honest with you. Again, it just looked really cool. Then they moved on to a game called Sea of Solitude. It's got this sort of cartoony / blocky aesthetic where it's like almost pastel coloured. Looks great. It looks really, really cool. And again, this is a kind of a low point / in a way a highlight, because the lead director was talking about it, but she kind of waffled on a lot. A lot of what was said hardly made any sense, but from what I gathered, apparently humans can become into monsters. It's kind of based on a true story in a way, despite it being in a fantasy world. I think it's a true story about loneliness, which is what the main characters suffer from. It looks like it's going to be an action platformer. That's what I gathered. But as I said, the way she revealed it, the way she gave out the information, it was too much in one go. Just tell us the character that you play as suffers from loneliness. The humans have become monsters. Just make more sense of it. I can tell you're excited. That's fine. I can really get that she was really excited about this game. But just don't talk about it too much. Just talk about the key points and then move on. Show the gameplay. And gameplay-wise, it looked great. It looked fun to play. Really interesting. I like the way how the water behaves. So when it was darker, it looked like the water had hands and it was trying to pull the main character down off the boat and into the depths of the water. And there was one segment where it kind of the sea parted and revealed a path, kind of like I'm going to say, kind of like in the Bible where Moses parted the sea and the travellers went straight across. It was basically the same as that, only in video game form. So there was that. Then they moved on to NBA 19. And then they moved on to Madden NFL 19. Anyway, the next game that they showed... and I will actually say, after Madden, that was the last of the sports games. Fine. But don't talk about them too much, seriously. In fact, I will mention one thing. The only thing that I got from the Madden reveal is that there was this guy who was the champion at Madden last year. He got a belt, and there was another dude out on the stage, and this is the other thing as well. The interaction was really, really, really awkward, where I think one dude was on one side, they were on the other, but they were really far apart, almost like they are rivals. guessing. I don't know. I'm not a player of any bloody sports game. In fact, this is one thing. EA, we know you make your sports games. We know that. Just don't keep showing them off for 5 minutes at a time. Just say, we've got a new FIFA coming out, it's got this and this. Move on to the next game. And so, at least they did that with NBA. They didn't reveal too much because obviously, why fix what is broken? Or why fix what isn't broken, rather. And then move on. That's what they should have done. But they didn't do that with NFL. But all they talked about was the competitive side of the esports and Mountain Dew, whatever. But then they moved on. I actually will move on. Moving on, they revealed this new mobile strategy game, and it was definitely a mobile game. It looked great for a mobile game. They actually really did get the graphics right on that one. It looked like it used a hex grid system in terms of where you place. Looks like where you place your base and your weaponry and where you move your little units around. They did that. Also, those units. This is a typical mobile game trope where they had a timed regeneration, and it looks like you had limited numbers of what you can use at any given time, whether you use a certain turret or deploy a unit to this base. And it looked like the whole game is all competitive based, so it looks like you're playing against another online player, and your goal is to basically take out the enemy's base by launching a single missile. Depending on how many hits it takes, you can have 1 hit, 2 hit, 3 hits, whatever. But they did a 2-hit one. But they debuted it in a way where it was basically like a shoutcast. And they actually did have I think they had the lead director of the game plus a shoutcaster. I don't get shoutcasting, I really don't. They just waffled. They waffled on and on. I was trying to concentrate, but it just wasn't hitting me. But then they revealed that it was actually a new Command & Conquer game, Command & Conquer Rivals. Can I just ask, is this what happens to long-forgotten franchises that were absolute big hits on like either main consoles or PC, that they just turn into a mobile game? Is that what happens? Because this new one, it looks like it's only going to be available on mobile devices, so Play Store, App Store, iOS, that's it. Maybe Windows Store as well, if you're lucky. But mobile only. Command & Conquer was actually a very well-renowned strategy game. In fact, my brother played it, and he absolutely loves it. He's got, I think he has Red Alert 2? Is it Red Alert 2 or Red Alert 3? One of the ones. I think he had a couple of Command & Conquer games as well, and they're fine. They were good strategy games, but they made it look accessible. The whole point of a strategy game is that you learn each mechanic properly, and I'm not a strategy game player. I don't know how you do strategy gaming thingy blah blah. But yeah, it's going to be mobile only, which would annoy a lot of people. In fact, I did look on Twitter and it did annoy it. I will admit, I didn't watch it live. I actually watched it on repeat. So, yeah, there was that. And then, for their last game that they showed is Anthem. They showed this last year very briefly, but they did it in a different way. Instead of having one of the people from the development team walk out and talk about it, they actually had 3 people on, and the same weird girl was doing like an interview style thing where they were talking about all the different mechanics of Anthem and everything else. It looks amazing. I mean, I don't think I'd get into it because, again, it's not my kind of game. But it definitely looks the part. It looks incredible. The water effects especially, where some of the mech suits can go under the water. Really, really cool looking game. But what they talked about was the fact that the world itself is completely dynamic. So you play it one day and then you come back to it the next day and it's completely changed. Which, that's quite a good thing to think about it. Quite a good thing to think about it. But yeah. But that's one thing that they showed in terms of that one. But they didn't quite show it, they just talked about it, but they didn't show it off. It's also going to be a shared world and story. I don't know how a shared story is going to work, because from what I gather, Anthem is going to be very multiplayer focused in its missions, but when you return to your base, it becomes a single player game. Weird, but sorry, you can tell it's bloody warm tonight. But yeah, it's intriguing. I will say that it's intriguing, and they've also told us that they're going to add more storylines post-release. Destiny 2 and Destiny 1 say hi. That's what it is. It's very Destiny-like in terms of how it plays and what you can actually do in terms of different ranks as well. And that's the other thing as well. The armour is called the Javelin armour, or it's the Javelin exosuits, and there's 4 different ranks that you can choose from. And what you've got is the Ranger, which is more of the shooter, get focus, which is very shooter based. In fact, I would actually consider the Ranger to be more of a jack of all trades one, where you can do melee, you can do gunfights, and so on. They had the Colossus, which is the heavy hitter, big huge armor all over the suit, very melee based and very much getting involved with it. That's really cool. The Interceptor, they didn't really show much of that one, but all we know is that they were really, really super quick. They're really fast, they could dodge enemies very easily. Probably very quick base attacks, not very strong I'm guessing, but very quick base attacks, unlike the Colossus, which is more strength and speed. And then they had the 4th one, which is called Storm. So is this one more of an elemental based one? Where, from what I gather, they seem to manipulate electricity or lightning. But they also have a gun as well. Okay. Again, I don't really get why that is, but yeah, that's apparently a thing. Another thing as well is that, like Battlefield 5, there's going to be no loot boxes or premium passes. Good. Keep sticking to this. In fact, this is what I want to see from this year in terms of new games in general. I don't want any form of loot boxes or gambling involved in that sense, where you basically buy a box in the hope you'll get a really cool item, but you don't quite get it, so you buy another one, and the cycle just repeats itself. I'm not a fan of that in any way, shape, or form. It does also have a release date, February 22nd, 2019, and that is EA's press conference. I think overall it was no. I think if I were to grade how it was, I'm going to do it out of 10 just for argument's sake. I'm going to give it, and this is kind of generous, a 4. That's all I can really give it, because that 4 were all the games that I would be interested in, like that Sea of Sorrow, Unravel 2, even some of the Battlefield 5 stuff kind of interested me, but I'm not really a Battlefield player or a Battlefront player. The rest of it was just sports, and Andrew Wilson contradicting his own statement. And the same thing with Command & Conquer Rivals. Didn't interest me at all, to be honest with you. I mean, I obviously spoke about it best I can, but that's it. But yeah, I would give it a 4. Because obviously the rest of it is all the crap, basically. But yeah, that's kind of it. I will be watching Microsoft's one tomorrow. Hopefully it's going to be better. Please be better than EA, because that was a really poor start to E3 this year. I'm just hoping that Microsoft kick it off with better things, I hope. But we'll have to see until then. So I still don't get how Andrew Wilson's brain works.